Thanks for everybody for coming. I really appreciate you guys making the effort in this heat and in our offices. So yeah, thank you. So I'm going to start my talk by telling you about a very special day in my career. It was when I submitted my first pull request. I was 18 years old and I got sent a task, and it was to basically debug a bug that we had in production. And absolutely nailed it, found a solution. It worked. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm a developer now. I've got a career path. Things are going well. But about a couple of minutes after I submitted the pull request, I get a Slack call from my tech lead, and he asked me, can you explain this line of code? And I was like, oh yeah, of course I can. It fixes the bug. What else do you want to know? But he was like, oh, but can you take me through the function from the start? What actually happens here? And I couldn't, because I copied it from Stack Overflow, if we even remember what that is. Exactly. So I copied it from Stack Overflow, and I thought I'd done it. And then he said something to me that really stuck with me, and it was never submit code you can't explain. And that really kind of stuck with me throughout my career, and I feel it's really prevalent today when we're creating a lot of code through agents. Maybe I don't know how he's sleeping at night if that's the situation. But the issue really wasn't Stack Overflow. The issue was I introduced code I was trying to introduce code into production that I hadn't verified. I didn't know its source. I didn't look at the structure that it was written. Didn't even fit my code base. I had no way to observe what were the changes that I'd done because I didn't understand it myself. So, who's watching the agents? Someone needs to. So yeah, in this talk we'll look at how agents are changing our development workflow, how we can utilize OpenTelemetry to benefit us in watching them, how Coralogix can help, and how we can train our agents as well. So yeah, I'm Lewis. Hi. I've been at Coralogix coming up to a year now. Before, I was a software engineer and tech lead at IBM for about a decade. So I specialized in mobile development. So the two big kind of mobile apps that I led was BP Pulse. So it's an electric car charging app. If you have an electric car, lucky you. You can use BP Pulse to charge that. And then secondly, I worked on a banking app for NS&I, National Savings and Investments. Cool. So code agents are no longer side tools. As you probably know, you probably use code agents a lot throughout, and it's affecting our whole workflow. You make a prompt, you can generate a test file, you can generate a whole PR, you can use code agents and agents in general to observe your production after you've made those changes as well. So it's really affected the whole of the life cycle. So we need to treat it with the same rigor and respect that we would for every other component. So for example, if you look at for their PR, we wouldn't just not observe PRs and just let them go through. So we need to give agents the same sort of rigor. And it's not a completely unusual story. When systems became distributed, we had distributed tracing so we could monitor how our services were talking to each other. The moment infrastructure became dynamic, we needed better telemetry, we needed better logs, metrics, traces. And when user experience became essential, we had real user monitoring. So it's not completely unfamiliar. And there's two things that we hear. We see production in detail, but we don't really observe the agents that are creating our production code. So we do the left part really well. Like for example, I have I've got a live side project right now that's running, and even I would know instantly when there's been a database issue. I'll know when my real user monitoring has had an alert because there's been an error spike with my user experience. But I don't know how much tokens I've used, whether I'm using the right model, for example. I don't know if an agent has spoken to a third-party service through MCP and given out sensitive information, and that's bad. Probably bad because I'm giving this talk as well. But those are the things that we need to start to think about, and the things that we need to know. So it's really important to note that I think naturally life before agents, if we can remember that far back, there was a natural bottleneck in building features, right? So if you had, I don't know, like a mobile application, you'd have a UX team that would go out to understand users' pain points. You'd have BAs who'd create tickets on that. You'd have designers who'd make the designs, and you'd have developers who'd actually build the code and actually develop. So that was a natural bottleneck that kind of fed through work gradually. But with AI agents, that bottleneck has not necessarily been removed, but it might have been shifted slightly. So we're putting more pressure on everything more downstream. So, like, for example, can our testing and our PR reviews, can it handle the amount of work that's coming through now? The amount that we're shipping is increasing from the start. So there are two questions here. Maybe we shouldn't be asking, are developers faster? That might not be the measurement, but maybe we should be asking, can the engineering system safely absorb the work that the agents now produce? And I think we should be able to answer these 5 things. So I've separated the questions that I think we should be looking at into 5 categories, and I think they marry well together. So the first is cost. And it's not just how much are we spending, but how much are we spending on each particular model, for example? Is there one model that is costing loads and shifting our costs right up? Is there one particular session that did it? Is there one team that might be using a particular model? And should they? But that is only super relevant if you understand the quality. So are the agents actually producing good work? Does it justify the cost that happened before, right? How many times are you going back to an agent and asking it to redo what it did? And did it actually like enter, or I don't know, did you have like post-merge incidents? Did you have errors after that? So on the third is flow. So are PRs slower to review? I was speaking to a friend of mine who still works at, works at a different company. I just looked up and saw the camera. Works at a different company, and she was saying to me, that the PRs that the code agents are producing are like 5 times the length unnecessarily than an average developer would make. So it makes it quickly, but then it slows down our review process because we still have people reviewing code as well. So at number 4, we have security. So are the agents touching sensitive files? And this is super important, right? So if you, like I said before, you might have agents who have access to third parties through MCP. And if that agent then, maybe it might share some PII, you'll need to know that instantly. But then also, if it has access to sensitive files, so you need that kind of audit and track. And then most importantly, we have outcome. So is the AI actually improving delivery, or is it just an activity? And that kind of encompasses the 4 before. So different agents and one observable surface. So I think this is just my opinion. I think it's really important as a developing team, we have one I guess, way to look at the complete observability of our agents. We need to be able to understand the sessions, we need tool calls, we need to understand the files it's read, all in one place. So, going on to OpenTelemetry. Who here has heard of OpenTelemetry, or maybe used OpenTelemetry? Oh, it's about 50-50. Very nice. So OpenTelemetry is an open source framework for observability. So it standardizes how we generate, collect, and then export our telemetry data. And Coralogix is a first-class citizen. And if you want to know more about it, we're here after. But one thing that it does, it creates a shared language for how we can monitor our agents. So for example, if you had 2 teams, and one of them is tagging the agent name as agent_name, and then you have another team where it's just agent name in one word, it will be really hard to compare the two agents within your logs and your traces and in your telemetry data. But if you have a shared language, then it makes it so much easier to compare those different the different agent telemetry. Cool. So how can we actually start looking at the data that our agents are giving off? So the first thing I'd recommend is traces. So here we have traces with some spans underneath, and I think the best way to think about it is every session that you start with an agent, and that's your trace, right? And then underneath that, you can have all of the actions that happen because of that. So you have here we have a user prompt, so the user might write something in, and then a tool might be invoked, a Gen tool might be invoked. There'll be things like whether any third-party MCP requests because of this. And what this does is it gives you a really easy and great visual breakdown of what the agent's actually done. And if there's say there's a bit of latency in one of so here we have the user prompts, but if one of the spans below were a bit longer and you could see that latency, maybe you can investigate that and get a faster response as well. So, and secondly is logs. So this is really important for general audit and understanding what the agent's actually done and going back to actually check. So keeping logs of the agents after you've made a prompt is really important. And importantly, we're all developers here. So with Coralogix, you can choose to either send your prompt that you've actually typed in your logs or not. And if you want to know more about that, Chris is your man at the back waving.
Not in like a salesy way though, more like
yeah, he's fun to talk to, I recommend. Yeah, so those your logs. And then, so it means if, say there's an alert that's gone off, say if a bit of PII information has gone into a third party, you have an audit right there where you can go and investigate, and then you can make actions based on that, so you're not guessing. Cool, so let's see it. So as part of, out of interest, has anybody heard of Coralogix before this? Oh, now you have. So we are an observability platform, and we look at handling your logs, metrics, and traces, and then we go one step further. I guess we allow you to make real business decisions based on the data that you have. But as part of our platform, we have our Code Agent Observability, which is really easy to set up, and I actually think it's we offer a free trial as well that you can go and you can connect to your agents to see this in review. So I think this is a good example of something that you can do quite quickly. But with this, say you've connected your code agent, in this case I'm using Claude, the first thing you'll see is your key insights. So what models have been used, doesn't work. Which models have you been used, how many sessions, stuff like estimated costs, so sort of your high level stuff at the top, and you can change the time window here to whatever you're looking at. So the first thing that comes up is cost. So you get your total cost for the time that you selected, and you get the breakdown over time and the cost over time. You can also get the cost per model, which interestingly Fable is not at the top. But if you wanted to just narrow it down to a particular model, you can click on Fable, for example, and then all of the data there will be just to do with Fable as a model. But this is important, but it's only useful when you marry it up with usage, right? So does that usage justify the cost? If you have, say for example, you're spending like thousands of pounds a minute, but your usage is 100% of the things that's been suggested is getting into code, is getting into production, and your code's really good, maybe. But if it's not, then it might be something to look at. So we've got things like acceptance rate. So how much of the code suggested by an agent has actually made it into your production, and more things below this. You can also connect it up to your GitHub repo to see more of a breakdown. And if you are an admin, you can see the users as well and how they're interacting with it. And this really kind of, I guess, here, for example, if you have Cameron at the top here, who has a higher cost, but he might be using for the work that he's doing, let's just say he's updating unit tests, but he's using Fable to do that for each one. It might be just a nice suggestion. Hey, you might want to come down to like Opus or whatever. Cool. Nice. Okay. So now we've observed the agent. The next is to give it production context. So if we think of the agent as part of our delivery lifecycle and how we treat a developer, we want to empower it. We want it to know after it's done the work and it's made it into production, has actually done a good job. So with Coralogix, what you can do, so we launched a CLI a couple of months ago, and the CLI was to help developers and also agents connect to telemetry data. So if you are using things like Claude, we have a bunch of skills that allow Claude to then understand how to navigate through the Coralogix platform, which is really cool because I tested it out with one application and I made sure that the agent would create, I guess, maybe like a feature with errors in, but then it was able to pull the logs down and get those errors and then correct them later on, which is really cool. And it looks something like this. But yeah, so with Coralogix we have a few unique features. For example, we have data prime, which is our query language. We could give Claude the data prime skill, and then suddenly it knows how to effectively and efficiently query the data through Coralogix without you needing to know. Cool. So 6 things that I'd like you to take back to your team. Apart from Coralogix is amazing. Number 1, code agents are very much part of the software delivery system. Secondly, AI has moved the constraint and not removed it. Thirdly, more code is not the same as better delivery. Fourth, OpenTelemetry gives you a vendor-neutral way to observe agent workflows. Number 5, code agent observability shows what agents are actually doing. And then with 6, with Coralogix CLI, you can give agents and engineers production context for evidence-based investigations. And if I had done all of that and considered that, my tech mentor might still like me. But yeah, cheers. Thank you.